So I imagine we'll go back to some of those active years we've been seeing when we don't have an El Nino.
What are we looking at? Because, I mean, the August and September are the highlight years anyway.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the oil company, BP is saying, I mean, the capping of the drilling of the relief wells is the really and truly only 100% way to stop the spill once and for all, and plus they want to capture the oil anyway. But their best guess, if they do everything without any problems, it's still going to be mid-August when they get that done, and that's the height of the season. So, you know, what are we looking at there? I mean, I know you have a crystal ball, but still, what are we looking at?
Well, there's going to be oil in the Gulf during the peak part of hurricane season. I mean, it's going to linger there. Even if they do get the wells shut off, it'll linger there for weeks or maybe months afterwards. So it's highly likely that we're going to have a hurricane going through the Gulf oil spill.
That just bites. You know, it just bites. And that's why I'm sitting there going, what can we do faster? What can we do to remediate? Because the major concern that we have, of course, and you're well aware of, is the disappearing of the marshlands of the coastline of Louisiana anyway. With the oil spilling all over and killing these marsh grasses, that's just going to make the coastline disappear that much more. We lost 10 years worth of coast just from Hurricane Katrina. So if we got a big storm that hits us this summer when we've already had a bunch of spoil spew all over the marshlands and start killing it, it's not going to hold together anyway. So I'm just wondering how much coast we're going to lose this year because of this nonsense.
Yeah, I don't really know much about the toxic effects of oil on marshland, and I'm hoping that a big storm is going to be diluting it to the degree where the marshlands aren't going to suffer that much.
Yeah. You know what? I got callers here, and I got somebody asking an excellent question that I couldn't begin to answer, but I think you can. Bill, thanks for calling up. You're on WWL.
How you doing, man? I was wondering if the oil being black and black attracting heat, will that raise the temperature of the Gulf waters?
Yeah, it should do that. And also, the oil prevents evaporation from occurring, so you're going to heat up the water some more because you're not going to get that evaporative cooling like you get, you feel when you walk out of the shower and your skin gets cool and dry. So yeah, the water is going to heat up, and again, it's not that big a patch of the ocean compared to the size of a hurricane. So
well, it's not that big a patch, but I mean the hurricane. Look, I'm talking to people who are telling me about the plumes of oil that are underwater that haven't reached the surface yet. So we don't even really know how much oil is out there. If a storm comes into the Gulf and churns the waters, could it be bringing a whole bunch more of that oil to the top and making a double whammy when this is done? After the storm comes by, when we go back out there and go, look how much, I mean, the oil patch is twice as big as it used to be, you know?
Yeah, that is a valid concern. If the oil is within maybe, 500 feet of the surface, the hurricane could potentially bring the oil to the surface because they do churn up a lot of water. But those super deep plumes down below 1,000 feet deep, the hurricane's not going to touch those. It can't mix water down that far.
No, but I'm hearing reports that we do have big plumes that are between 100 feet. I've talked to some people who dove on the area, and I got a caller hanging on to talk about that who dove with the Cousteau Society, who said that they got plumes of oil, 30 to 100 feet, and you can't even hardly detect them from the surface. So
yeah, a big concern is what we can't see. I mean, you can see the surface, but you can't see what's down there, and you can't see those darn dispersants, which are toxic too. So that's a big concern.
Well, let me ask you that about those before. I got two questions to go. Okay, number one, what kind of temperature rise are we talking about? I mean, if the water temperature is normally 90 degrees and the oil raises it 2 degrees more, how much will that increase the intensity of a storm? And number two, the storm won't necessarily suck up the oil and spread it inland, but will it suck up this dispersant and rain it inland?
I don't know what the chemical composition of those dispersants is and how much they could be dissolved into water. That's a great question. I'm going to need to research that.
It's glycol is one of the ingredients in it.
I don't know the answer to that. It's a great question. And the other question about how much the ocean will warm, I think several degrees, like 2 to 3 to 4 degrees is reasonable.
And would that take a Cat 2 and turn it into a Cat 3, that much water temperature?
Well, you'd need it to warm to great depth. I mean, because a very deep column of water is what's needed to really turn up the crank on the intensity. So, again, that's an unknown. We don't know how deep down that warming effect is going to happen.
Yeah, I got you. Bill, great questions, man. I didn't think of those. I appreciate you calling in. Thanks so much. And Dr. Jeff Masters, I appreciate you calling. I know I got to cut you loose here. Thanks for joining us today, Director of Meteorology at Weather Underground, Dr. Jeff Masters. Thanks so much.
All right, happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to do the news, and when we get back here, we'll talk with, we'll try to hook up with Buddy Caldwell. Gary Holling from Cousteau is in. I got a bunch of other calls too, but let's get back here with the news, the headlines here on the Spud Show on the Big 870 WWN.
WWL First News, it's 2:30. I'm Don Ames on your official weather station, WWL AMFMN.com.